Hey, good evening, good morning, wherever you're watching this in the world. This is Spurs TV here, and it's Harry back again. So, if anyone doesn't know, yesterday was my birthday, but I spent most of my birthday going on other people's streams. So, I think I went on 5 different streams yesterday, which is a bit mad.
That's all right. It's a good birthday, mate.
Yeah,
It's a good way to spend
so I
the
went on
birthday, isn't it?
two United fan channels, one Leicester, 2 Spurs, yeah, 2 Spurs, 1 Leicester, 2 United. So if anyone's watching this, you probably see my face all over different channels for the past 24 hours. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. And so I've got Carl back again. Carl, how you doing?
Yeah, good, mate. Yeah, really good. Looking forward to talking more things Spurs and kind of more therapy that might be needed. So, yeah, always good to be back, mate.
Yeah. So first of all, I think we'll start with the transfer window because obviously that's just happened. Your first thoughts after the window closed yesterday night at 11 o'clock, what were you feeling?
Well, to be honest, I think it's just another Spurs transfer window, isn't it? Where you come away at the end of it feeling a little bit disappointed, not really feeling that we've probably done enough to push or potentially help us push for a top 4 place this season. And another window that you kind of maybe feel lacks or shows a lack of ambition to the manager that might sway him come the end of the season, good or bad, because you well know I'm not his biggest fan at the moment. Conte, I don't think, as much as I think we all know the ball are the biggest issue, I feel Conte should be probably doing and getting more out of it and should be doing better. But it does show, again, you could look at it as a window that maybe shows him, well, we know where the weaknesses are, but yet again, the club haven't really gone out to try and fix those issues and show me that they ever will go out and be really prepared to honestly have a real go at pushing for the next level. So yeah, I felt it was kind of disappointing. Yes, we got one over the line that we wanted, but one wasn't enough, was it? And isn't going to be enough to solve the bigger problems.
I think, in my opinion, the Porro thing. I did a video on this on my channel a day or two ago. Maybe I actually I posted it yesterday. Yeah, I think the club are trying to trick people,
right?
Because okay, then Danjuma thing was a pure opportunistic signing, and that's been said by a lot of journalists. It was purely because they wanted to shift Gill, and they needed like a short-term sort of replacement, I guess, at the end of the season. I know Danjuma has an option to buy, but let's just put that aside for a minute. So they didn't plan to sign Danjuma. He was in the country, and I think they just kind of picked him up, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now Porro is a different story, because if you believe journalists like reports like As the Gold, I'm not against them. This is not against him. It's just he reported that Spurs were looking at a right wing back as a target this window. I don't know if you saw his tweet after the window closed or something like that. So right wing back wasn't a target, yeah. So he argues that we got the target. Now, if the right wing back was a real target for the window, why did it take 31 days to get it over the line? Can you explain this to me? Because I've kind of was sick of hearing Porro's name by like week 2.
Yeah, I mean that again is like a typical Spurs transfer, isn't it? Where all you hear for like a month or a few months on end is one player's name, and constant drip feeding of, well, we're a bit closer to the signing. Tottenham feel they've made a breakthrough in the negotiations and all that sort of rubbish. And I think that's where, I think this transfer has to be broken down into certain elements, because obviously one minute it was on, next minute it was off, wasn't it? Next minute it's back on again. And then there was a few things, then it's turned out it's a loan to begin with that people weren't happy with. So I think if you break it down, you have to look at certain elements of it. And if we look at the transfer from the outside, it looks a mess, doesn't it? Because we all sit there and say the problem areas in this team should have been known about and would have been known about well in advance, wouldn't they? Even around the World Cup, everyone knew, who's a football fan knows where the issues in our squad are. So you'd like to think if you've got a big scouting department and Paratici, who's apparently cooking, all the time he's cooking and mixing ingredients, then you'd like to think as a club, you get your targets and you know your targets well in advance. If you're working properly, you'd say, right, who are our targets? Who's available? Who do we think's realistic? And obviously with Spurs, that's a big ask, who's realistic, because a lot of that depends on a lot of factors, doesn't it? But you would like to have thought that come January, we would have known we are going after X, Y, and Z player. So as soon as that window's open, and the window doesn't even need to be open, does it? Why can you not go and tie that deal up even before the January transfer window opens and just go, well, all we're waiting for now is the window to open, and then we can announce that deal. But let's say you'd like to think the way it should work is the target, he's our target. Okay, January is the transfer window. So as soon as January opens, you go to Sporting, don't you, and say, right, we want this bloke. What's the deal? What's the asking price? What's in the contract that we might need to know about? Are there any policies that we need to figure out, and all this sort of stuff? And you'd like to think that, right, 1st of January, we start doing business. By the 7th, 8th or 9th of January, you'd like to think that's sewn up. Right. What do we need to know about? The agent can tell you what's in the contract you might need to know about. The club are going to give you an asking price. It's then a case of, right, what do we need to get this deal done realistically? And you get it tied up. Chelsea have just shown you in this window how they do business. Yeah. We go, we ask, how much is this player? He's X amount. You might haggle. No one's arguing with the haggling. You never pay the full price to begin with, but you know the full price. So you know what sort of region of figure you got to look into. That transfer should have been done within the first week of the transfer window. And Porro probably should have played 2 or 3 games by now in a Spurs shirt, getting used to everybody. But as Spurs, as we always do, we drag it on to the last day. And it gets officially announced with like an hour of the window to go. And you do say, well, what has been taking so long to do that deal? And this stuff about, they wanted him to play the final. But again, if you go in at the beginning of January, you get him out of there well before that final takes place. And you say, well, no, sorry, he ain't staying for that. We want him, and we want him now. So I think that transfer just sums up the shambles that the club is from top to bottom. Now, I don't have an issue with it being a loan to begin with, because ultimately for me, as long as the bloke's through the door, that's all I care about. I don't care how it's paid for, whether it starts off as a loan to begin with and then we pay 5 million a month for however long. I don't care. So I don't care about that. Just get him in, which we've done. But that should have been done in the first week of the transfer window, not the last day. And that's where, like I say, that's where the club kind of just show that they are a shambles from top to bottom. And obviously, I'm sure we'll talk about the loan situation later on. And ultimately, it's again another example where when people say, what is it that people have a problem with in terms of ENIC, this is the sort of thing that we have a problem with that ENIC are doing. If ENIC were getting these sort of transfers over the line nice and quickly, boom, we want him, within a week, it's been done, he's in, playing, you'd go, well, fantastic, what a way to do business, and the answer to that we show is good is when we signed Ndombele, because that was tied up like that. And we all went, brilliant, well done. You've gone out and got what we all thought was going to be Europe's hottest property, and you've no messing about. It's been done, and you've got him in nice and early. But this dragging it, that's where we have a problem with ENIC, and that's where we all think serious questions need to be asked of what is the plan or what is the vision that this club has, because you're just not acting in a way that you think a big club should act when it comes to transfers.
I think for me also with Porro, there was also rumours of the release clause, which I don't know whether it stands this summer or in January. It's a bit hazy. I have no idea.
Yeah, yeah.
He will confuse the hell out of me about the release clause, but he would have had a price tag regardless. Let's put that aside for a sec. And then you have the whole administration fees thing that we heard. Then you heard we were lowballing them initially with like players, and then you heard that Levy personally went to do the deal because they let a third party do it. And then we had the issue of Paratici. So I don't know if that's a fact, that I have no idea, because I know Phil wrote a comment about this. Was all in charge of transfers because of the court case. I mean, I can't confirm or deny that.
Put it this way.
Know, yeah.
I've always said it to people. Any Spurs fan who thinks Paratici is in charge of transfers at the club anyway is in cloud cuckoo land, because we all know who's in charge of transfers at the club. Paratici is just the face that is there to kind of take the heat or act like, well, I'm not, for Levy to say, I'm not involved in transfers anymore. He's like, that bloke is running things and he's running everything. So anyone that maybe thinks Levy isn't in charge of transfers and having his say is in cloud cuckoo land, to be honest.
And I think it was all so confusing. I kept hearing different things, different offers, different. Oh, the deal was off. Do you remember the other day? The deal was off apparently. Then it was back on again because Levy personally went and dealt with the deal, and we finally got over the line. But it's just, obviously, journalists, I'm not blaming them themselves because they probably get told different things, either by the club or like a source. You know what I'm trying to say? But the fact that it was so hazy kind of just confused me even more in terms of what was actually going on. And I kind of just checked out of it myself because I was just like, I can't be asked to read this anymore.
It does. I think, as we said before, Spurs make transfers boring. Because you hear so much of it for so long that in the end you just go, for fuck's sake, either sign this fucking geezer or move on. Because it's fucking boring now. And not being funny, I'm not even excited if he joins anymore, because his name, I'm actually bored of the bloke's name already. Just get it over the line, get him signed, get him holding a shirt and get him playing. I think a lot of what we hear anyway on Twitter and that, I mean, a lot of fans jump on any Twitter rumour, don't they? Or any rumour that comes up, and fans go up in arms, and every player that a club sign is like, Bournemouth have signed this person, why are we not all over that? And you go, we wouldn't really want him, would we? So why we let Bournemouth have that bloke? Who cares? So I do think a lot of that, I don't really bother reading a lot of this, in the know news or what people post, because I think half of it is just gibberish to try and get a few clicks and a few likes or a few pages visited. So we probably know nothing about what's going on in the background to a transfer, because none of us have probably ever been involved in getting a football transfer over the line. But it does seem we make it, the questions have to be asked is, why do we make them so much harder than what most other clubs seem to do when it comes to buying players?
Because for me, someone like Alistair Gold, who made that tweet saying that Spurs right wing back was a priority this window, regardless of whether I think a centre half is right. The fact it took 31 days to get one player that apparently was our prime target over line, it's just disgraceful. It
is, it's a joke. I mean, like you say, we all know what the priorities are. Two centre, and we all know what they are now. Goalkeeper, two centre halves, creative midfielder, another forward that you can possibly, use, that you can rest Kane every now and then. That's those are your sort of, probably 5 big transfers there that suddenly we need before we can even start thinking of challenging and getting close to the top 4.
And it's just, I think the centre half for me is the one that really irks me, because regardless of Conte staying or going, a centre half fits every system. So not making it priority really, really annoys me. I'm not asking for 2, even 1, just a senior one to come in, even for like a 2-year loan or something, or like a Bonucci. I'm not saying Bonucci exactly, or a De Vrij, or a Skriniar, which is available for £20 million, and the club have been watching them for how long? Something like that, just even for like a few years. So at least when the next manager comes in, because I'm not expecting Conte to stay after this window, at least he has something to work with in the back line, because you need to start from the spine of the team, regardless of who the manager is.
Yeah.
I think the goalkeeper is a bit of a stretch to get someone in this window. I think it's a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, I don't think we were ever getting a goalkeeper in January. That's going to be a summer acquisition when Pickford's going to come in the summer. We already know that. I can already tell people that's going to be the signing that comes in.
Yeah, you're going to see a meltdown from me.
Sorry,
you see a meltdown from me that happens.
Yeah,
but
you can.
I really hate him.
Already,
I actually hate Pickford so much. It's just, you have no idea. And then I was hearing rumors about Harry Maguire on loan, and like they're looking at Hincapié, but like, why were they not looking at him earlier in the window? Can we not do more than one signing at once? But I need to ask you this big question, because I obviously put the transfer policy as a thing here before we go on the play itself. So I always assume Spurs are a reactive club, because we seem to want to do everything very slowly, and we always have this mentality we have to sell someone and then bring someone in, or it's like one in, one out policy, right?
Yeah.
And if you look at someone like Arsenal, for example, they went for Mudryk, right? I'm not saying they got him. Oh, Luca's here, actually, ironically. I mentioned Arsenal and Luca turns up. Hey, Luca, you're on, mate. I was on a stream with him yesterday. But they went for Mudryk, and he's going to have a moan about this probably in a minute. And they didn't get Mudryk, right? But they moved on to Trossard within like a week or so, whatever it was. And then they went and got Trossard within like a day. And then the same with Caicedo. They moved for Caicedo. We saw about the 2 bids, or whatever they made. They couldn't get him. Brighton refused to sell him. They moved for Jorginho. Within like 1 day, they signed Jorginho. And it's like proactiveness. So because we're not proactive enough, like it's almost in the 5 months, like it's February now, yeah? The summer's when it opens in June. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, so is that 6 months or 5 months?
You'd have around 6 months.
Around 6 months. So what are the club doing in these 6 months? Because they already know the targets, yeah, before the window. It's almost like they don't do anything. Are they not identifying players to say in the first week of the window they can like make a bid or something? Or what do they do in these 6 months?
Like I say, you would like to think that, like I say, right now, once you would like to think, once Conte had come in, got himself settled, he looks at his squad. Now, the way you'd like to think it works, a manager comes in, he looks at his squad and goes, right, I think I've got good players in these positions. I've got poor players in these positions. So basically, he then goes to the board and says, right, let me tell you now, front three, no problems with. One of the best front threes in the country. So we don't have no issues there. Yes, I might need some backups, but it's nothing major.
Not priority.
My issues are at the back. I've got one decent centre half, and then the rest of them are players that I can't trust to put in. So I need 2 of those. I need 2 wing backs, because that's the system I want to play. Neither are particularly good enough. So I need you to get me 2 wing backs. I probably need a midfielder at some point, but again, he might feel that's not high on the list of priorities. Now, you like to think at that point, right, now your scouting department come in and go, right, these are the positions we've been told we need to fill. Let's go out. Who does the manager like? Because surely Conte will have given some names. Yeah, he would have gone, well, if he's ever available, or this bloke or that bloke, then brilliant. That's the sort of player I'm looking for. You're then going to get a list of possible players from scouting departments. Okay, you look centre halves. These are the centre halves before we've scouted, who we think are good. So then it's all about working out who you're going for, isn't it? And at that point, that's when you go, right, who's our prime number 1 target for these positions? Okay, say right wing back was Porro. Porro is the one we want as the right wing back. Right, he's our main target. But what you'd like to think happens is, if we can't get him, who's next on the list?
Yeah.
If we suddenly go to them and say to them, we want this bloke, and they say, go away, not selling him. He doesn't want to come, or he doesn't even want to come to you. So forget that one. Right, who's next on the list? Okay, this bloke's next on the list. Right, we're going to try for him. That's the way you'd like to think. It's all been mapped out and planned out. And then it's just the execution. Right, now we need to go and execute it. The manager wants X, Y, or Z. Let's try and execute it. But you do get the impression,
you're right,
somehow a list is drawn up.
Yeah.
I get the impression that list goes to Daniel Levy, and right, well, Conte wants him and him and him. we ain't buying him because he's too much money and he's 28. So you can forget that one because there's no sell-on value. So there's a good bloke there. Look, he's 23. Yeah, but Conte doesn't really want him. Well, yeah, but he's 23. Yeah, we know, Daniel, but we don't. He's not. He's fifth on the list. Yeah, well, fifth on the list will do me. But that's the impression you're kind of getting how it's done. But yeah, it feels very scattergun. It doesn't feel like there's a, once you start chasing a bloke and things start becoming really difficult, where you think this ain't happening, you reach a point where you should go, do you know what? Let's move on. Let's move on from this bloke. Go to the next one.
Yeah.
It just, and these are the sort of questions that I think need the answers around. We want to see what is the process here? What's the vision? What's the mapped out road work for where this club's going? It is like random FC,
yeah.
And it is, and that's the kind of approach with managers. You get the look. That's the approach when they do anything. Oh, we need a new manager. It took all summer to get Nuno in the door. To fire him 5 minutes later. It's like, well, how many managers did we go after? But it was a bit like,
you're right, Luca.
You wanted to make sure, like with players and the same with managers, what is it you're after? What is the sort of vision of the club so that we're following a vision? Now, if you look at, say, a club like Brighton, you get the impression they've got a vision of what they want their manager to do, how they want him to play, what sort of football they want him to bring to the club. So when Potter left, they already knew the manager they wanted to get based on he fits our vision. And that's what I think as fans, we want to know, what is ENIC's vision? What
I think we know it, don't we, really? They want young players, your salaries.
We do know it.
Conte basically told us without saying it explicitly, right?
But that's where we say, isn't it? We want to know, we actually want to know this for real. Where's the transparency? As a club, what is our philosophy? If it's, because like I say, if you're Brighton, as a supporter, you know what the philosophy of your club is. It's like, yes, we might not keep these great players. When we bring through a good player, Brighton immediately know next summer, all the big clubs are going to come call him for this bloke. Or if the manager starts working, a big club is going to come call him for that manager. But our philosophy is this. So the next bloke we bring in has to work towards that philosophy. So you know where you are. You know what the club is trying to achieve. At the moment, I don't think Spurs fans could tell you they know what ENIC are trying to achieve, other than, like we say, making money out of football. We know their ambition isn't to win trophies, essentially, or it doesn't seem like it. They'll tell you it is. They'll tell you they're building towards something, but it's scattergun. Oh, we'll bring this manager in. Oh, no, we'll get rid of him. We'll bring this manager in. They're not following a philosophy, and that's, again, we've said it all the time. That's what I think fans want to know. And that's why tomorrow
big up, Daryl.
Tomorrow will be very interesting to see what answers.
Sexy secretaries. We don't even get those, I don't think, mate. I don't see any of those.
Yeah, I wouldn't have imagined so, yeah.
Yeah. But, like, as in, what I'm trying to say, your analogy, I don't think it's an analogy, but I use this analogy, right? So you say about moving on from players, right? It's almost like, I give Bastoni as an example. He was a player, obviously, Conte he really wanted. Hey, big up, Jacob, you're right. As in, they really, really wanted in the summer. Now, it seems like to me they were chasing Bastoni for at least most of the summer. And then we get to the end of the summer and it's like scrounging around to find like a left centre half to provide Conte with. So we end up with Longley on a loan deal. So obviously they looked at Gavardiol clearly because Gavardiol was like 18 million. They must have seen the fee and just winced and moved on. I don't know. But clearly Bastoni was one they were looking at. Regardless of what the reports were saying, I do think they were trying to do something with it. But it's almost like we say with your analogy about moving on, like it's almost like with Birds, obviously, if they're not getting anything out of it, just move on, yeah? But it's like Spurs, they just chase the player for this whole time, and then it either happens eventually because the club gets bored of probably hearing Tottenham's calling them or something. I don't know. Or we get the player eventually, or also we don't. But spending so much time on the one target is like basically the issue, I think, partly. And also the pre-planning before that, it just doesn't seem to exist. But that's a story for another day. So at least we'll talk about Porro himself, because we finally got him after 31 days. So number one, do you think he's a Conte signing or player? And number two, do you think he's a required talent? I know we have Emerson as like, and we'll talk about Doherty in a minute, but do you think he's going to make an impact straight away? Do you think he's going to start against City or?
I hope so. I mean, given, my worry is we all know that when Spurs sign a player, they normally take about a month and a half before they're match fit to suddenly make an appearance. We always feel like the one team that sign players and then you don't see them for about a month and a half first, and then you go, oh, we finally get to see our new bloke. Wow. Yeah. Very rarely do they come in and hit the ground running. But I like to think he would be, January signings should come in and hit the ground running, because most of them have been training, playing, and we know Porro has been playing. So I think he comes straight in. You can't mess about. He'll be fit, so he'll come straight in and play. Now, whether he's a Conte signing or not, no one will know. We'll never know, because if he comes in and he does really well, he'll be a Conte signing.
I know that's
if he comes in and he's a flop, then it will be, well, yeah, but that's because Conte really never wanted him. That was a club signing. We don't know who are club signings and the only one we definitely know is a club signing is Spence, don't we? And the reason you know that is because Conte never played him. So Conte is telling you what he thinks of that signing, because even though he knows his other two options are really poor, he'd still rather stick with them than stick this geezer in. So that one wasn't someone Conte wanted. You can even look at Basuma and say the amount of football did Conte want him or not? So we'll never know. We can only hope, though, that he comes in and he's the right player. I mean, put it this way, he can't be no worse than the options we've already got there, can he? So he's probably already a step above the players that we've got in that position, but we don't know. Only time will tell. I've never seen enough of him, I'll be honest, other than the odd game, those 2 games against us, and the odd bit of highlight. I can't say I've watched him enough to know whether or not he'll bring anything good or bad to the team. So that's just hope he does come in and hit the ground running. And he looks like he's got some good attributes. He seems reasonably quick. He had a couple of reasonable games against us. So let's hope he comes in and does the job we need him to. But I can't see him being any worse than what we've had there before. So, he'll improve us, I think.
So eventually, by the end of the window, Emerson was left with the other right wing back. Now, obviously, Spence was expected. As expected, he went out on loan to Rennes to join Joe Rodon, ironically. Yeah. Whether that was a fact, I don't know. And obviously, Doherty, as you may have seen in the last hours of the window, his contract got cancelled because we had too many loans or something like that.
Yeah.
So I just think, honestly, I just thought that was just so incompetent by the club. Like, how could you not realize that was an issue? It's just,
I mean,
how do you explain that? I just don't understand.
And again, it makes you want to ask the questions, doesn't it? You got to ask questions of, where is your planning here? Like, given you knew you were chasing the right wing back all window, you've got 3 sitting there, so you need to move at least 2 of those on. So what's the planning or thinking behind? And if someone sort of went, well, we might be able to loan one of them out, someone should have gone, I've got a little bit of problem with that, guys. We've already got X, Y, Z, and already out. It kind of does show you that somewhere down the line, the real work is not being done to figure this sort of stuff out, and it's not a good look. The only good thing is, with that happening in a way, there's a couple of good things. One, we got a player off the books that, not being funny, needed to go. I find it funny that now that he's gone and it was terminated, people seem to be moaning like
we didn't get money for him.
sort of like decent wing
Yeah.
back that we've got rid of, where it was like the bloke was as bad as Emerson most of the time he played. So I'm not sorry to see him gone. I'm not sorry that his contract was terminated, because I think that's the sort of thing as a club we should do a bit more. You know, if we want someone off the books, we'll just get rid of them, pay them off, get them out the door and move on to the next one. We're a club that spent far too long hanging on to players well past their sell-by dates. So that was good. But the other good thing is it highlights the horror show and the poor, you know, what must be poor running of the club behind the scenes. And again, it doesn't look good on ENIC. So it kind of helps that cause of people saying, you know, we've had our discussions before about ENIC out or trying to get change.
Right, mate.
So I think it kind of highlights them more as being a bit of a shambles and needing some serious questions asked around what's going on.
Because I only found out about it because I kind of checked out of the Poro thing because they didn't announce it till like 5 to 11.
Right, yeah.
And then I was like, so I was like, I can't be asked. Yeah, so I was actually on Rich's show. So if you guys don't subscribe to him, please subscribe to him. And someone on the show told me, oh, you guys terminated Doherty's contract. And I'm like, what? I thought he was going out on loan. That's all I heard all day. And he was like, he's terminated. He's gone to Atletico on a 6-month contract, whatever it was. And I'm like, what? And he goes to me, oh, it's because you guys have too many loans. I know we loaned out like so many players, but it's not my job to count how many we have loaned out. I don't work for the club. I don't work in the scouting department. I don't work in the transfer department to know we've loaned out already 8 players, whatever it was, the number was. So it's just to me, it was just an absolute joke. But for Poro, I've only seen him like you 2 games. The only reservations I have are whether he's a Conte player is because of his I know he's 5'8" or something, and he's not exactly the stockiest player. And the previous wing back we were linked with in the summer was Singo from Torino. He's more of like a muscular player. Of course, he's got pace as well. And obviously he's from the Italian league. This guy's from the Portuguese league. So it could be a club signing. It could be a bit of both. Like, we'll find out, I guess, if he plays against City or not.
Yeah, that's right.
Starts. Yeah.
I mean, like I say, we'll soon find out, won't we? Because it'll only be, I would sit there and say I sometimes probably only need to watch someone for a couple of games before I kind of sort of go, good signing. No, this one doesn't look like he'll add much, to be honest, and he'll probably be one that's gone within a short space of time. So we'll only know after the first few games. I mean, City is that is a real baptism of fire, isn't it, coming into that game? But, again, maybe it's a sort of game, if he has an outstanding game in that sort of game, then at least right, well, this is a guy that doesn't just do it against mediocre or poor opposition. This is a bloke that turns it on the big stage, which is what we need. So, yeah, only time will tell, really.
Because the impression I got as we saw Twitter, because I do know the club monitor Twitter accounts. So I do believe this. I don't think it's a joke. But it's not Dracula's job. Count either, but I still count Dracula. That's quite funny. Well done, me. Okay, but as in, I remember when Poro played against us. So whether it was the fact that we have such bad wing backs or right wing backs at the time that people weren't excited over him, but I remember all of Twitter going mental saying we should sign him.
Right.
And it's almost like, I don't know if the club saw it or it seemed too much of a coincidence to me. And obviously the fact that we actually played against him, we signed like a youngster. I can't remember his name. Jude something. Anyway.
Yeah, young lad from Chelsea.
Well, I have no idea about him. But so it's almost like I don't know if they saw the tweets or they saw, because it's happened to me before. Like with Reguilon, I was pushing for us to sign Reguilon because I seen him play quite a bit in Spain. And for did he play for Seville? I think it was Seville, yeah. And Sevilla Spurs is very big about Reguilon, saying he'd be good. And I think we got him for a release clause or something like that. I can't remember, something like that. And then the club ended up signing him. So I hope that's not the reason.
I mean, you never know what the I'd like to think that there's a little bit more work gone into transfers than reading Twitter, because, like I say, when I see that some of the players that people ask us to sign,
Yeah.
I sort of go, well, blimey, I don't know what you've seen in this geezer that makes
Yeah,
you.
I know. It's just it seemed like a lot of Spurs Twitter was saying it. Maybe
And
because we're playing against him, and it was
I
like,
think a lot of Spurs Twitter still call Ndombele a baller.
oh, there's some out there,
And
isn't there? I
when
guess.
you consider what we saw, you sort of go, "Wow, you're still dying on this hill that this bloke has got some quality about him." I'd like to think there's a little bit more goes into it
Mm.
than that. Yeah, you'd like to think a top elite
I
sport
know. I'm just
have
putting
a
it out. I'm
little
not
bit
saying it's true.
more of
It just
a
seemed
top
ironic we played
scout.
against him and then we went for him, if that makes sense. And maybe the scouts looked at him then. I don't know. Yeah,
He's
Judson
probably
Bell, that's the name.
he's
Yeah.
probably been on the, like I say, you like to think there's, the
Yeah.
90 there is highlight reels and that, yeah, where you sit there and go, oh, he looks great on Twitter. Right, that was a
Yeah.
5 minute video. What's that? A minute in each game that he's looked good in. What is he like week to week for
Mm.
90 minutes? That
I have
that's
to admit, when I saw, do you remember
player.
Vincent Janssen? When I saw
Yeah.
his videos, I was like, yeah, this guy might be good. And then I watched him play for one game and I was like, please sell him. He's too slow.
It's the trouble, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's a bit like James Ward-Prowse, isn't it? Everyone wants us to sign
Set
James
piece.
Ward-Prowse,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you kind of go, he's actually, a lot of people say he's a match of the day player, where yes, he
Mm.
looks great on match of the day, but match of the day is a 5 minute highlight reel of a 90-minute
Mm.
match where for rest of the 85 minutes, the guy wasn't actually adding much.
So I think it's time to move on and touch very slightly on the FA Cup draw because I thought that was quite interesting. Um, so we got Wrexham or Sheffield United away. Now, you might hate for this, but I really want to get Wrexham.
Yeah, I think everyone does, don't
Just because
they?
of Ryan
There's
Reynolds.
almost like
Yeah,
a little bit of glamour
because of Ryan
behind that
Reynolds. Yeah,
behind that
yeah.
tie, isn't there? I think if you get Wrexham at the racecourse ground with Ryan Reynolds and all the razzmatazz and Hollywood behind that, then it is a bit of a glamour tie, isn't it? It's it's going to be live. It's going to be picked as one of the matches that will be live that weekend. So yeah, I think everyone is hoping. I just got a feeling Sheffield United will have too much for them, especially in that replay at home.
Yeah,
I think when you're clubs like that at home, you get one chance to kind of beat a team like that, and ultimately, I think Wrexham really needed to get the job done at their
they
own
almost did
ground.
it.
I think away from home, they might just get found out a little bit there. The quality, the leap in quality might show. So yeah, I think it'll probably end up being Sheffield United, but I think we all are secretly hoping it's going to be
I
Wrexham.
hope it Wrexham. Yeah, because when it was happening, I was praying for Wrexham. So I was like, please, please. And then, yeah, we got them in the end. But like I said, it's more for like the glamour, the whole thing. But regardless of who we get, do you think we can go through because it's at their ground?
Yeah, I mean, we should be going
Same
into that
Maker.
feeling confident that
Yeah.
we should get through that one. So, yeah, I think when you start looking at the teams left in the competition now, you start to feel that this is again a winnable tournament, a winnable trophy. Whether or not the problems come once we actually play somebody of real quality. The minute we actually draw, say, a Man City or Man United, will we then be able to do what we need to do against a team like that? And my worry would be that we won't be able to when we draw. When we come across the first real decent team we play, we could get found out. But not being funny, plenty of teams have won it by just drawing lower league sides all the way to the final, and then in the one-off game in the final, anything can happen.
I think you have a very good chance to go all the way this year, especially because I think City got Bristol City away or something, and the other ties are sort of more favourable in the sense that there's a chance to say the bigger teams might get knocked out because we've only got I think City, United, and is it Liverpool as well left, or is it just City?
No, they're out now, aren't they?
They're out.
Liverpool out, Brighton
City,
knocked them out.
United, 10 Premier Leagues are out. 10 Premier League teams are out. So you have a big chance to win the tournament this year, I think.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, when you look at the teams left in it, we should feel confident. Like I say, the worry comes is that the minute if in the next round we drew Man United at Old Trafford, you'd be thinking we ain't getting through that one, or Man City away, you'd go, no, that's it, cup runs over. So I'll take the lower league sides all the way to the final, mate. I'll take that. You don't need to win a cup by beating all the best sometimes, and hopefully I think this could be the year that we keep getting lucky in those draws. But then I remember the year we got Portsmouth in the semi-final, and we thought,
God.
oh wow, this is it. We're definitely in the final here, and we suddenly go and lose 2-0.
I didn't go to that, thankfully, because we didn't get tickets in the end. And then we had, I think, Arsenal and Chelsea we beat straight after, though, and we made top 4 that year.
Oh, it was I mean, that was just a bizarre game, wasn't it? If Dawson doesn't slip and clears that ball, who knows how that game goes.
Kieran Prince Boateng, I think he scored.
Yeah, he scored. Yeah. It was always going to be the way, wasn't it?
Ex-Tottenham was bound to happen. So I know it's a bit far in advance. We have got City on Sunday. Are you confident at all into that game? Do you want us to win? Because they are chasing down Arsenal.
Yeah, we need to win, don't we? City can do their business when they come up against Arsenal. For us, we need to get a win, and you beat a team like Man City, you'd like to think it gives you confidence and some momentum to go on. Will we beat them? No, I don't feel confident whatsoever. And we saw even last time we went 2-0 up and still got drubbed in the end. So again, the only good thing that you can hope for is this kind of a free hit game, isn't it? Where you can go into it with no pressure and go, well, listen, we should lose. So if we get anything, a draw or a win, we've done well. At home, we know we can beat anyone if we turn it on. But I think we probably should be looking at a defeat in that one.
That's encouraging. So Cancelo's, I think, went out on loan to Bayern Munich. So
yeah, he did. Yeah.
Of course. Is Kyle Walker injured, or am I wrong?
Well, I think he's having niggles, isn't he, at the moment? He kind of comes back, then picks up a niggle. But I think he'll be all right for that one.
So do you expect Porridge to start?
Yeah. Well, why not? You got to get him in, haven't you?
We're going to see Emerson.
No point splashing that money out. I mean, don't get me wrong, it wouldn't surprise me if he didn't start, knowing the way that, like I say, we do like to ease new transfers in. So I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't, and there'll be some stuff around, well, he needs to get up to speed and learn the system and get fitness. But I'd like to think, given the fact he's just played in a cup final, he's fit enough and he'll be in. And there's plenty of time before that game. So I'd be very surprised if he doesn't play.
Okay, so Son scored a couple goals last game. So do you expect Son to keep his place? And are you expecting to see a different Son now? Because we've had this question a million times this season. Is he back? Because everyone, is he going to come back?
Well, I think, like I say, there's been that sort of negative thing, isn't there? Of like, well, yeah, but look at who he scored against. And, I think that kind of is a little bit harsh. I think the one thing you can sit there and say, they were 2 good finishes, and they were finishes of the Son of last season, confident finishes, no messing about, brilliantly taken goals, no matter who they're against. So we've just got to hope that might be the kickstart. But we all thought that when he got the hat-trick against Leicester, didn't we? Is that, right, well, that's going to be what kickstarts him. And ultimately, it didn't work out that way. But we'll find out, because if the City game comes, he couldn't have picked better opposition for the next game either, because we all know most sides that come to play us at home sit back and they play deep and they don't let Son do what Son wants to do, which is run behind, whereas Man City won't do that. They'll come and they'll play the way they know they want to play, which is pushing up, putting some pressure on. They'll leave space behind for the ball over the top, and we'll see if Son can exploit that, if him and Harry Kane are on fire. So he couldn't have picked a better opposition to come up against next after that game against Preston, because they won't be a side that just debunk in their own half and say, well, come on then, can you do it?
So I want to also touch on with Son. Do you think? Because I know he played in the middle of the three against Preston. Do you think that's going to be a positional change for him? And do you think it benefited him more? Because I felt like maybe it was because Kane wasn't playing. I don't know. I'll bring that up in a second. But because he was playing in the middle, he kind of had a bit more. I don't know where this something. There's a bit more freedom.
Yeah,
And because obviously when he's playing on the left, and sorry, Sessegnon or Perisic is playing on the left, it's almost like they take up sometimes his own space. When he's playing further in, which I kind of think Conte's kind of adapting him to play that way, I felt like he had a bit more freedom to sort of roam around more. And because if you saw, he dropped off a bit even,
yeah,
and then he joined the attack later on, and that sort of thing. And because of his age, I think he's 30 now, right?
yeah.
He's obviously lost some pace. That's not, you can see he's lost a bit of pace. Do you think in the long term, if we're going to keep him, do you think he'll convert into a more central player?
Not while Kane's there. If
As
Kane
like a
was to leave,
3-5-2 or something in the central with Kane?
well, see, put it this way, you've got a manager that ain't going to change his system.
Mm.
So I don't think suddenly you'll have Conte think, oh, Son could play in that middle area. Oh, I might fiddle about. Conte isn't going to do that. He's got his system. He's going to play the way. Unfortunately, no one's moving Kane, and quite rightly, because he's the best number 9 in the world. So in if in the summer Kane was to leave and Son stayed, then we might find that there's a slight adaptation there, and Son might be used differently to fill that void of Kane going. But right now, I think he's going to play where he normally plays. I think when we sit there and say, are Perisic and Sessegnon taking up his positions?
Mm.
Well, we were playing this system towards the end of last season, and Son wasn't having a problem
No,
with
it's just
someone
the
like
way Son's
Sessegnon
playing is
and that
almost like,
there. I just think,
yeah.
unfortunately, last season was, Kane was on fire with his passing and in his assisting. Son was on fire with his finishing and that. I also think we found that teams, because we're such an easy team to play against, I think teams nullify us, and you find ways to nullify that threat. If you play Spurs, you got two main problems in that Spurs team that you need to look out for. Well, actually, we got three now, but before we only really had two: Kane and Son. And if you mark them two and you do the job on them two, Spurs haven't got much that can hurt you. Then we've added Kulusevski, who can hurt teams as well. But Son and Kane just haven't hit that purple patch that they were last season, where Kane's assisting Son left, right, and centre. Teams are allowing Son to get in behind. That's not happened as much this season, and Son hasn't had his, shooting boots. Whether it's the pressure of being, the Golden Boot winner, and you've got to try and follow that up. All the previous years, Son has kind of just been out of the spotlight, hasn't he? People know he's a good player, but he's still kind of out of the spotlight. Whereas after winning the Golden Boot, he's now the main man. People are saying, well, actually, is Son the main man for Spurs? So there was pressure this season to try and repeat that. That might have just got to him. And he's found it hard to kind of repeat that. So I don't think it's anything to do with the system. I just think maybe, he hasn't had the sort of service that he got last season from Kane, and he hasn't had his shooting boots on for quite a bit of it. So, yeah, I just think there's just those mixture of things, and who knows if we get it right or not. I guess, again, only time will tell this season if he can refine that form.
Because obviously under Pochettino, he did play as he wasn't exactly a backup striker, but I remember when Kane was missing, he'd often put Son as a striker.
Yeah.
And it's almost like I saw the same thing happen again against Preston, because obviously Kane had a virus and Son was playing there. I'm not saying he's going to be backup striker, but do you think that because he was given more responsibility because Kane wasn't there, do you think that was a factor why he performed better?
Maybe it can do it. It can lift a player thinking, maybe he went into that game thinking, well, listen, I need to step up today because
Yeah.
Harry's not on the
It
pitch.
happened on a Nuno as well in his first game. Or first,
Yeah, that's right.
yeah.
Maybe he likes that pressure, but then I think you also, that is when I do think you need to look at the opposition that you're playing against and sit there and go, well, this was a team in the championship that are around the bottom of the championship. So these are not Man City centre halves. These are not top level centre halves who know what they're
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah.
So I do think there's some of it there that we have to go. Well, yes, we do have to look at the opposition we were up against. He did well. He took his goals well. We just have to hope, like with all players, when you score a couple, it gets the juices flowing, and you think, "Oh right, yeah, I still know how to score a goal," and then he can do that week in, week out again. I've got to be honest with you, I'm not confident. I think we'll see. I think against Man City, we'll probably see a similar Son performance than what we've seen before the Preston game, in that they'll nullify him, they'll get him under control. I don't think he's
Same
great.
problems.
Yeah, I don't think he's great dribbling with the ball because he doesn't seem to be able to beat people at the moment. He's passing and touching haven't been brilliant. And I think, yeah, he'll just get, and we probably won't see enough of the ball to get him in the game enough. But like I said earlier, he's playing the right team, because if Harry's there and he can whip a ball over the top or through the gaps, then he might get a chance that way. So we'll see. Yeah, and the jury's still out as such. Yes,
Okay.
but you've got to start somewhere, haven't you? So let's hope that was it.
I mean, like for me, I've just told people, because obviously WhatsApp groups are going crazy when someone scored those 2 goals. I was like, just calm down. Just let's see what happens in the next 4 or 5 games. Because if he carries on that way, then he probably is going to go back to what he was
Yeah,
like. But if we see him next against City, against Leicester, I think is afterwards,
yeah, Leicester after
he
that.
gets to
Yeah,
the Valentine's Day and he hasn't done anything, let's say, then I'm going to be like, no,
yeah.
I'm not going to be convinced. But so yeah, just before we touch on like a match score prediction and near the end of the show, but there is supposed to be a protest again before the City game. Obviously, I've spoken to Lee about Levy and Inika on your channel. We had a good discussion about
Yeah,
that actually. So are you? I don't know if you have tickets for the game. Are you planning to go to the protest? What do you think about the protest? Because considering that obviously the window's already closed, it's not like we can
yeah,
have an effect on what they do.
yeah.
Um, do you think it will make any sort of difference? Do you think the BBC and Sky will say anything about it? Like, what do you think about it, just in
Yeah,
general?
well, listen, we've had our chats, haven't we?
Mm,
I kind of think the whole, Enoch out isn't gonna, that isn't gonna happen, because Enoch will go when they're ready to go. But any protest, and anything, I'm for it. I came to the one at the training
yeah,
ground.
yeah.
I wouldn't be able to make that one Saturday, unfortunately. But for those that do go, then good on them. And anyone mocking them is like, well, listen, unfortunately, you can mock it all you like, but at least these people are backing up their opinions and their views by doing something about it, whether it's 10, 15, 20 people, doesn't matter. Full credit to those people for turning up and not just talking, not just moaning on Twitter
Yeah,
with
I know
the
what you're saying. Yeah, yeah,
they're backing
yeah.
up how they feel by going and doing something about it. It's a fair play to them. I don't, I've said to you before, haven't I? The things of walkouts on certain minutes, I don't agree with.
Doesn't work. I don't think
I
anyway.
don't think a walkout on the 22nd minute would have any impact at all, because I think the ground is too full of casual supporters for a 22nd minute walkout. No one, I think, would notice supporters that have gone
No.
out too far spread around the ground. I think sit-ins. I think rather than a protest outside the ground, sit-ins would be the best form of protest right now, because that is something that cameras inside the grounds will pick up. Again, Sky might look at it outside the stadium, but it might be that if it's not big enough, then there might be an element where TV crews and that go, oh well, we're not too worried about that.
I know what you're saying.
And
Yeah, yeah.
that's no disrespect to those doing it. Whereas sit-ins, if you had large numbers sitting in with banners and stuff, it's easier for the TV crews to pick up and highlight, oh, by the way, there was a sit-in at the ground. But I think tomorrow these answers come in from the trust, and what the answers to these questions that the trust
Do you
have
think we'll
asked.
get an answer?
Well, apparently the answers are coming tomorrow, aren't they? The
Oh,
trust have
okay.
had the answers, and they're releasing what they were tomorrow. So
Mm.
that might rile up a few more people, and it could be good timing for the protest, because if lots of people don't like what the answers are that the trust have been given, it might encourage a few more people to suddenly come and stand with the protest and make some noise. Also, being at a home game, you have
Oh
got more
yeah, yeah.
likelihood that more people might show an interest and come along. I think what it is key, though, again, and I've always said this, is to make sure that it's done in the right way, and that there isn't what I consider to be a real toxic nature behind it, because that will then turn away the average fan who thinks, oh, I don't really
I
want
know
to
what you're
be
saying. Yeah,
associated with that behaviour. So as long as it's done in the right way, we might find it grows a little bit, and it becomes, and it gets some numbers sitting there. And if it does, then it will definitely highlight, and that's all you can do, keep highlighting the unhappiness and the unrest, and hope that it has an effect, and suddenly makes people wake up and think, oh, hang on a minute.
Also, the financial results haven't been released, so as far as
They're
I'm
coming
aware,
soon,
yeah.
aren't they? I think
So
so.
that's gonna, I think, rile up even more people.
Yeah,
From
we'll
what,
do.
from what I've heard, well, I'm not saying it's a source. It's just people keep telling me Spurs made like record revenue, record profits, and all
Yeah,
this
if,
sort of
if
stuff.
it's record
Yeah,
revenue and record
yeah.
numbers, then again it will make people go, well, hang on a minute, what's
What's
going
going
on?
on? Yeah, yeah. So, before we end, do you have a predicted score for the City game?
I'm going to go 3-1 City, unfortunately. I'd like to say or be more confident, but I think we'll score. But it might be like the game at their place. We might score first, but then all we'll end up doing really is waking up the beast and regretting it. So I'm going to go 3-1.
See, I'm going 4-2 to City because I think history
Okay.
tends to repeat itself. With
Well, we know
Tottenham,
Haaland will be on the score sheet, don't we?
I mean,
That's for sure.
I think with Spurs it's just Groundhog Days. So I've come to the conclusion nowadays I'm just going to predict what the score before was against a certain team and be like, yeah, we're going to lose 3-0 or 4-2 or whatever comes out.
Yeah, I think probably 3-1, but it wouldn't surprise me if we score first and get our hopes up just for at least 10 minutes.
Because obviously there's this 22-minute walkout thing. My thinking was, if we're losing 3-0, maybe people would walk out regardless.
Oh, well, I think, I think you
Yeah.
would have. Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
they'll try and lock the doors to keep you in, but
And it won't even because of the protest, it'll be because of
if we're 3 down after 20 minutes, I think you might see a few people leave nice and early, and that'll be nothing to do with Enoch out.
Yeah. So, before we end the stream, where can we find you? Are you guys? Because I know when you're on your podcast again before, are you guys doing more?
So we're going to
videos?
start doing more stuff. Yep, it's just about finding and fitting it all in with the schedule, because like yourself, you end up going on podcasts and that takes up time.
That's
and
completely my fault, by the way.
Just getting everyone ready and getting people finding out their slots. Unfortunately, everyone's got kids and stuff like that. So it's like trying to fit it in the evenings. You've got to have an understanding wife. So there'll be some more stuff coming soon.
Because I find it in the sense that sometimes I'm better like on the whim, in the sense that someone sends me a link and I'm like, I might be able to join at some point, but don't count the chickens in terms of like the time. Or if people have obviously some people have set days, like the bigger channels have set like days because they can do it like that way. People watch.
Yeah.
But when you're obviously like me and you, we're just trying to get somewhere. It's more the fact that just get the content out, try and time it on times where it fits like yourselves and also other schedules.
Trying to fit it in around work, kids, spending time with a wife because she wants some time spent with her. There's bloody Spurs chat. And then there's also the fact that sometimes it's just too depressive to talk about, and you think, you know what, I can't actually be bothered to talk more depressive stuff today.
I think sometimes it's almost like I call it a glutton for punishment. Just talking about Tottenham, it's just like you just want to inflict more pain on yourself.
Yeah. I've had 45 years of that, mate. I always asking myself, why am I doing this?
I mean, when I was younger, you know what it is? When I was younger, I kind of accepted we were very bad in the 90s as an acceptance. But because we started becoming good, I say good, it's subjective, I guess, or objective. It gave me sort of hope, we're going to, do something.
The
But it's kind of good, like,
expectation rises, mate. The expectation.
yeah. So I find that this club, and I think this is just on the whole, I think they give us and the managers minimum backing in terms of like they'll give the manager say like 1 or 2 players in a window at the beginning and get our hopes up, thinking we're gonna. And I think the Pochettino windows are good examples of this. Even say for example the window we got in the Champions League, and we got Wanyama, I remember, quite early, I think.
Yeah.
And then we had like the Nkudu business when he was in the Holiday Inn or something. I don't know where it
Yeah,
was.
he was in a hotel for a month or so, wasn't he?
Yeah, so we had the promising one player that the manager clearly wanted in Wanyama. I think that was identified and got on early, and we were like really hopeful the window was going to be different from other windows because we made the Champions League. And then you had the Nkudu fast, which was clearly a club sign-in. The Pau Lopez loan, which was a bit random. And then eventually we got Sissoko on deadline day. And it's like they were scrounging around because they couldn't get Mane because apparently it was the wages was an
The
issue, I
wages
heard.
issue, yeah.
I even heard he went to the training ground. Someone told me he actually went.
Imagine turning Mane down for wages.
For Sissoko.
Which bright spark did that?
Yeah. And it's like it's just I just feel like it's almost like at the end they're trying to make us feel grateful that we got another player, if that makes sense. Because they met through all this just to.
Well, that's the whole thing, isn't it? Drag out one transfer.
The poor thing, by the end, we're all just fed up, and it's like just.
By the time they get
relieved we got him
released, you're just so happy it's done that you forget. Is like, oh, is that it though?
We took 31 days. Because like with the Poro timing, I think the announcement for me really annoyed me because it's like they did it 5 to 9, 5 to 11 or something, and it's like they clearly delayed it on purpose. I think Poro was done. He was signed and sealed hours before that.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Maybe even a day before that.
It's all we got to get his announce video ready. It's like just announce it. Worry about the rest later.
It's not just, I think they on purpose because I've noticed, like for example, with the I think the Sissoko deal was an example of that, or someone else. Who was it? Not Sissoko. It was another deal we did, and we all knew it was done. And I remember they left it till like 10 to 11 or 5 to 10 to announce it because they knew if they announced it beforehand, there'll be people replying saying, "Why aren't you not signing anyone else?" So they do it on purpose to make you say, "Oh no, this is our business done because we announced this guy right at the end." If that makes sense.
Yeah,
so you can't have a chance to respond to it and be like,
shrewd business, mate. Is a crafty businessman who knows what he's doing.
But like I've clocked onto this now, so it's just, the Poro thing. I thought 7 o'clock, but then when I heard business was done at like 2, 3 o'clock, I was like, they're gonna leave it to 11 now. I just checked out. I was like, I can't. Even the announcement stuff. I watched the video back like a few hours later. I wasn't even that bothered.
Oh, I haven't even watched that, to be honest.
Yeah, I wasn't even that bothered. Someone told me there's the video, and I was like, oh, okay. I'll check it out for one.
I don't care about all that stuff though. Like when did people care about announcement videos and that? It's like, has it signed yet? Great, right, lovely. I'm off. On to the next one.
Because I'm sure if they put it, say, announced it at 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock, because apparently it was like Spurs business was done, you would see some people saying Levy out, Enoch out.
Oh yeah.
Where's another signing? We've got 7 hours left. You still sign us in a half. And the club knows this. I know the club knows this sort of thing. And
but then the club should just reply, don't we? You do realise it's just taken us 31 days to get this one over the line. If you think in 7 hours we're going to get something else done, no chance.
The admin replies back to the fan fight.
Listen, mate, 31 days it took us. 8 hours left, no chance.
But I do think it's psychological. I did a video about this. I think it's like psychological warfare. Like they do things in a certain way to give us hope and minimum backing to the manager. And then because we're moaning for the rest of the window, they give us someone late to give us say, oh, we finally got a player. And it's like, be grateful that we finally got a player for you because you were moaning for like the next 3 months. Like, I haven't got anyone else. It's just like, okay. So everyone go and subscribe to That Spurs Pod. Is That Spurs Podcast or That Spurs Pod?
That's it. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is on the screen. Yeah.
Yeah, and before we go, come on, you Spurs. Come on, you Spurs.